I believe he celebrates Christmas, and Christmas Eve he sent a gift to Vice President Harris's doorstep. We're talking about Greg Abbott, as we said, at it again, and this time the governor sent to her residents migrants from Texas. It's something that he's used before, and he pulled it out of his playbook again.
More than 100 migrants from Texas, including children, were dropped outside the vice president's residence in sub-freezing temperatures on Christmas Eve. Humanitarian groups gave them blankets, warm clothes, food, and shelter.
All right, so there they show up in DC. You know how cold. It's cold all throughout the country, but in DC, Christmas Eve, this is certainly not the Christmas spirit, but it's what the governor's done before. 140 people on buses came from locations all throughout Texas, cited a statement from the White House, NBC did, blaming the Texas governor, laying right at his feet. Here's a statement from the White House, let's put that up. The Governor Abbott abandoned children on the side of the road in below freezing temperatures on Christmas Eve without coordinating with any federal or local authorities. The political games accomplished nothing and only put lives in danger. That from the White House spokesman. Abbott has been putting migrants and asylum seekers arriving at the southern border on buses and sending them to cities including Chicago, New York, and Washington since April. We've covered it here on Indisputable. In September, under his direction, 2 bus loads carrying more than 100 migrants arrived at Harris's residence. So there it is, Mayor. I get that we perhaps have never been in a more polarizing situation in this country. But to use children who already, they have nothing, right? That's why they're coming here. To use them in this way, who is he? And I really mean, I need your wisdom. Who is a man who does this?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you started out in the perfect context. And I think it's important that people understand this. You said, I think he's a Christian. He is. He's a white, and white Christians, their studies after studies show that white Christians tend to be more racist than non-religious white folk. This is the most racist group in our country. So seeing this white man and all of his privilege and all of his power to run a state as large as Texas and have all those resources being employed against brown children, black and brown children at the southern border in this manner, some of those people, some of those kids showed up with t-shirts on in negative degree weather. This idea that this is what you should be doing on the eve of Jesus' birth speaks to what nationalism and white supremacy have in common, and it's the benefit and the betterment of white people, and it stops at that. And I think this governor just showed that it's in his DNA to show up and continue to show up in this manner. From the spring through the summer, through the winter, they continue to send these vulnerable people, the most vulnerable amongst us, which the Bible speaks against doing harm to these most dangerous climates without contacting federal or local, but for people at the border warning other folk in Washington, D.C. and New York that more buses are leaving the Texas border, these people would have been sitting out there freezing literally to death. So I think when you ask, who is this man, and you're being genuine, and then you start off saying you think he's a Christian, it tells us all we need to know about white Christianity. Also, we need to remember that this is the tradition of white Christianity in this country. Coming to what they call hanging ceremonies, where they will hang black people and pick parts of their body in their Sunday best, led by prayer and their preachers, cutting off body parts, taking them home as souvenirs, or bringing them to church the next day, as they used to hang people on Saturday. I think this is the tradition of white Christianity. So yes, that is who he is, a white Christian.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask, but you've given us the historical context. Do you get up and go to church on Christmas Day after this? Apparently, it's okay for some people to sit in the pew after doing this the night before. It is reprehensible. Let's move on, because 45 gave a Merry Christmas wish, social media. He's not banned everywhere, and he decided to give another unhinged, shall we say, a rant, political stunts. Mr. Trump posted wishing his political enemies a Merry Christmas. You see it there. I mean, what else he say? Merry Christmas to everyone, including the radical left Marxists that are trying to destroy our country. The Federal Bureau of Investigation that is illegally coercing and paying social and lamestream media to push for a mentally disabled Democrat over the brilliant, clairvoyant, and USA loving Donald J. Trump. I'm not gonna read it all, Mayor, and there's more, and we'll get to that, because this thing where he's, Bob Dole used to speak about himself in the third person, and that was okay, right? Bob Dole, and because of his injury, he would hold up the whatever. This is something other than that. No, I mean, yes, what he's saying is ridiculous, but this self-praise, adoration, it is Saddam Hussein-esque and Putin-esque, and it's just like this. This is a special fabric of a person.
Yeah, I think the difference in Saddam Hussein and Putin is that these two understood government and the power that they could wield. I think Donald Trump is just a sick individual in the sense that he honestly is projecting. This is a person who has never been accepted for himself. He lies about everything as it pertains to his life, and now he can see the future and talk to dead people as that he's clairvoyant. So this idea of he's a US loving president, your favorite president, as he called himself, talking in the third person, he's unhinged is absolutely true. The idea that you name your social media site Truth Social, and then when someone retweeted it or reposted, it's a retruth. You're trying to make people believe that all your lies are truthful because you said so, not because they are. And I think this is a continuation of that behavior. Donald Trump has long been unhinged. We saw this if you followed Donald Trump long. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that have that's a nerd about racism and racist. Donald Trump's history in the world is just that. His first apartment building that his dad gifted him, he refused to let black people live in it, and he was sued for that. And then we know what he did to the gentlemen who were not guilty of the murder in the park. And I think we just continue to see Donald Trump being Donald Trump, unhinged without any facts to back him up. But I know all of this tweeting seems like Donald Trump understands what's about to happen to him. He understands I'm running out, and he's in serious trouble.
Yeah, I agree with you, because as he becomes more aware of what's coming down the pike, he becomes more and more unhinged. I think you're absolutely right. This is a man who, up until this point, this advanced age in life, has not been held accountable. Okay, beyond his normal white privilege, has never been held accountable. And yet he's still tweeting out. We'll give you the second part of his ramble. Can we just call it a ramble? Where he talks about the fact that he declares he has total immunity. Very interesting, because until recently, the political hacks and thugs of the highly partisan January 6th Unselect Committee were seldom talking about your favorite president, me, as it related to the protest on election fraud. Number one, as president, I have total immunity. Number two, I did nothing wrong. I was gonna ask you, do you think, Mayor, he believes he's done nothing wrong? But I don't know that it even matters. I don't know that it matters. Does it matter?
It absolutely does not matter. But I think I think it's the exact opposite. This is just projecting more. Donald Trump knows that he's done something wrong. He was told, we found this out in the documents that were released, 800 plus pages from the report from the January 6th committee, that Donald Trump knew well before his riot on January the 6th that he caused, that he lost the election. People around him told him there was no fraud. He still went ahead with it. We saw what their plan was even before the election happened. They had already said they were going to claim fraud. So we know Bill Barr even told us that, and he was a Donald Trump loyalist. Bill Barr even said that they had a plan before the results were in, that fraud they were going to be their story. So I think Donald Trump, like I said, is projecting. He understands that he's in trouble. Also, someone needs to remind him that he's not president. So this total immunity, and I, as president, have total immunity, is absolutely hogwash, on top of the fact that even when you were president, you didn't have total immunity. So I think this idea that I'm above the law plays into this idea that Donald Trump always wants to present himself as a mob boss. And unfortunately, the gig is up.
Yeah, and we know something about mob bosses. We'll move on, but I want to just get one more comment from you, because can a person who behaves in this way, do they ever have anyone's loyalty? Because it strikes me, okay, the daughter who he's so close to, Melania with the jacket that I don't really care, do you? You know, the Bill Barr who you said, and I really want these people to go away and stop trying to rewrite history. You were right there. You were complicit till almost it went off the cliff. But anyway, maybe that's just my commentary, Mayor. Quick answer. Does a person who behaves this way ever have someone's undeniable, undying loyalty?
I mean, we saw so many of his people jump ship. And he thought giving pardon to some of them or offering or dangling in their face would be enough. And we still saw those people testify, hours and hours of testimony from those people he thought were lawyers. So the answer to that is no.
Wow.